Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of the Plus 1234 podcast. I'm your co host, Al Mustafa, and I'm here with
Tunia.
David.
Kemi.
So, from our previous episode, I remember we talked about food and how it affects your system as you immigrate to the United States. On this episode, we're talking about something heavy. It's going to be a first experience with racism in America. Usually, as Africans, racism is something that is kind of abstract to us because we don't necessarily have a direct involvement with racism, because in most sub-Saharan African countries, everybody there is black. Although there might be instances of tribalism, but there's never really anything that triggers your racial sensors. So I remember there was a clip I was seeing of a very famous Nigerian footballer, JJ Okocha, and it was I never knew I was black until I got to Germany. So on that note, a lot of times we don't necessarily understand what racism is until we actually experience it. So I'll go first. My first experience with racism was when I started grad school in 2019. It was after COVID hit. I think it was in January or February of 2020. So because of everyone was indoors for the quarantine, we're all losing our minds. So I was you know what? Let me just go out for regular runs in the morning or sometimes walks. So I noticed anytime I'm walking on this particular path, I used to coincide with this white lady. And anytime she sees me coming, she crosses the street. So I was I noticed it twice. I was okay, that's ominous, but okay. Let me just keep doing what I'm doing. So it kept happening. So at some point I got curious. I was you know what? Let me see if this lady is actually always crossing the street when she sees me, or maybe she just crosses the street at that point during her routine walk. So this morning I was walking as I typically would do on mornings like that, and there was this white couple behind me, and so I bent down to adjust my shoelaces, and then they overtook me, and then they were walking in front of me. Then I just allowed them to give a considerable distance between me and them, and I saw the lady again coming, and so I just waited. I kept tying my shoelaces, and I noticed that when those white couples passed, she didn't cross the street. But as soon as I raised my head up and I started walking again, I saw her cross the street. I was okay, this lady is actually crossing because of me. So that's my first experience with racism in the US. I was this is kind of subtle, because in Massachusetts, it's kind of a liberal state. So even if there's racism, it's not as obtuse as in the South.
It's not so in your face.
Exactly. So it's kind of subtle. But that was the very first time I consciously and actively noticed it. So Dunia, can you tell us some of your own first experiences?
Well, shall I?
Yeah, go on.
All right. So I'm not going to mention particular names of a school, but it was in the dormitory, the student accommodation. When I was there, I lived with, I think, was it 3 other people? So we were 4. We shared 2 separate rooms. So there was this particular guy, he's white. One day, it was a weekend, I was just in the dorm, nothing to do. I was just watching TV. And I think he went for a weekend, and he came back. He met me sitting in the room. I just took my shower. You know how you take your shower and you don't cream up, you just tend to get a little bit white skin.
Ashy. You get
ashy. Yeah. You get ashy. Yeah. And he was "Oh, look, you look white. Are you? Is that how you look when you're at home all the time?" That's what he said, quote. And I was "What do you mean?" He was "It seems like you need some cream or something." I'm "Yeah, I'm aware. I just took my shower and I decided not to cream my body. It's my choice, right?" And he just walked out of the conversation. I think I was not comfortable with what he said. He felt it, and he just like he didn't keep on going. But that same guy again, how I knew he was kind of racist towards me, even with his remarks, where another time he saw me in school, because usually we don't have classes at the same time or same place. But I think he saw me using the tap, the fountain, the water fountain, yeah. And he came back. I was in my room. He didn't know I was in, and it was like, you know when you come back from school and you're like surprised you saw something in school, and he was like telling the other roommate, guess what? I saw Dunia today. He was drinking from the well.
But everybody drinks from the fountain, like
so I
white
was like,
or black.
Yeah, I was like, what do you mean I was drinking from the well? I didn't confront him, but I think I spoke to the guy. I was like, oh, I just heard this guy calling my name. What was he asking about me? He was like, oh no, he was just surprised he saw you at the fountain today. I was like, no, he didn't say the fountain. He said he saw me at the well.
Wow,
and
that is crazy.
The conversation did not go more than that. To be honest, I didn't even think about it to be racism at that point. It was like, after a while, I sat down and I like just think about it deeply, and I felt this very particular person was so racist with his remarks. But I mean, for most of the time, he tends to be like a funny guy. He tends to laugh a lot, but some of his comments were traumatizing afterwards. Like, it really got to the emotion. It really got me emotional about, why he will single me out and make fun of me. It was funny to him, but it's not really a funny thing, because that really traumatized me. I still think about it. That's why I'm still able to, still tell the story. But, the most unique thing is your reaction for most of the time, because I felt if I was probably African American, I probably would react instantly, because I feel we from Africa sometimes we tend to react slowly from these racist remarks we get from people. Sometimes we don't even feel or see it to be racist.
Yeah,
so
sometimes, like, just to chime into what Dunia is saying, sometimes, like, as I mentioned earlier, because it's not something we grew up with, we don't have that, like, reflex response to it, like the African American people. Like, usually they are raised and their parents, like, teach them about, like, something that could be racial in context, and they're always aware. So usually as soon as they see it, they're able to identify it, like, at a glance. But with us Africans, sometimes it sits with you for days before you, like, reflect on them. Like, oh, okay, that was unusual. Probably is something racial. And then when you have conversations with other people, like, they confirm that, yeah, that was racial. So, David.
I mean, personally, like, I don't think anybody has been racist to me. Because if someone has actually been like that to me, like, I'll be in jail by now, because I'll kill somebody. My opinion. I have not experienced, like, direct racism before.
Oh, that's
But
funny.
I have experienced indirect racism before. Actually, like, me and Mustafa, like, experienced that, like, some days ago. So, in our apartment, someone stole one of our packages, and
Oh, yeah.
we started looking for the package. We went to the other building because we thought, like, it was delivered there by mistake. We stood at the door waiting for someone to, like, let us in, and this guy was outside with his dog waiting for us to leave before he entered. Me, I knew he was waiting. I could tell. Mustafa couldn't tell, but me, I could tell. Like, he was just waiting there. The moment we left the door, he went inside. I was like, this guy. And he was not even a white man. He was brown. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, it's like when it comes to, like, racism, like, it's like you being black, you're like the bottom barrel. So, if you've noticed from our show, if you've been following us from, like, episode to episode, you notice, like, it's usually just three of us, like, on the podcast. Today we have a guest. We have a fourth person on the podcast. So, Kemi, if you would like to introduce yourself, like, share your handle. If you like to promote anything, you can just promote it now, and then we can continue the conversation.
My name is Kemi. I don't really have anything to promote, but I work as an engineer, and I think we all graduated from the same school. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I really do. When it comes to racism, I can't really. I don't know how to put. I don't know how to put that, but I don't think I've actually experienced like a direct. I've never like had anyone like call me like a slur or anything like that before. But like even like around campus, even on campus, you can just tell by the way like the professors like treat you.
Mm.
Because I remember I was struggling with a class, and I went to meet my professor. This was more like some advisor in my department.
Yeah.
And I remember I was waiting in the room, like like at the reception, and I think I was actually the first person to get there, and there were like other students that came after me as well. And I remember we're here to see the same person, and he called them in, he invited them in like way before me, and I was just sitting outside for like 2 hours before I
Wow.
called in. So I mean, I guess that's what you can say like
Yeah.
indirect racism, like because we're not
Yeah.
gonna say it to your face, but
Yeah.
like it's kind of like I was here before every other person.
And you don't know how to react.
Yeah, it's
like,
very
yeah,
subtle.
Like, yeah, and it's
Very,
ki-
very
And
subtle.
they're gonna make it sound like, oh, maybe they had an appointment before you, but that's not true.
Yeah.
Like I was here. It's it's first come first served basis. But I mean, it's America. I guess it kind of happens
Yeah.
like everywhere you go, really. I remember actually like last week I went to get like I went to a restaurant. I was gonna get food, and then I was driving, and there was this guy on the I don't know, some white guy, and I think he was crossing, and he was crossing right in front of a car that was in front of me, so I didn't even see him coming. I'm telling you, he was not in front of my car. I did not hear him, nothing. But then when he saw me, he was just like, "Oh, you're trying to kill me. You fucking."
Oh my God.
And he started talking to me, and everybody's looking at him and was like, "What is
What-
going
yeah.
on?" Like, but of course, like even when things like this happen, I feel like in this country they like tend to mind their business a lot.
True.
Where like they see someone like treating you some kind of way, but nobody ever signs up for you.
Yeah.
Nobody ever
Mhm,
stands
yeah.
up for you, and you kind of have to be like, well, it's kind of like it's how do you even react to that? Because if I say let me attack him back, and let's say I say something,
Yeah.
now I'm going to be now I go from the victim
Yeah.
to being the villain.
True.
Yeah.
The
And
reaction
Yeah.
is always.
I don't know if you guys were following that murder that happened in New York, where like a guy was murdered in the subway in New York. I think he was suffering from like mental issues. He was homeless, and then I don't know if he approached somebody. I don't know the full details of this. Please don't quote me on it. Like, if you know what we're talking about, please leave a link or something in the comment section. But he's a very known guy in the subway. I think he's homeless and he has some mental health issues. And I think he approached somebody, and the person ended up putting him in like a choke position until he passed out.
Wow.
Really?
And then he died as a result of that. And every other person in the subway were just watching it happen. So it's like crazy. If they're not watching, they're like with their phones
Filming,
recording like what is happening. Is honestly, it's crazy to me. And usually, like if you talk about racism in the US, a lot of people will be like, but it's way better than it was in the 60s. And this is what I always tell them, like, say a man is an abusive man. He beats his wife 7 days a week, and then he reduces it to 2 times a week. So are you going to say that it's better now, that since, oh, he used to beat you 7 times, now he beats you 2 times a week, you should know that he's better than he used to be? No, the man is still an abusive man. So until racism is like fully eliminated, we'll continue to talk about it. We'll continue to like shed
Can-
light
can
on
Is
it.
it possible though?
Can it be though? Because
I don't think
if you
so.
check the theories that like racism is all about, there's like the conflict theory where racism came about, conflicts between different groups. There's social theory where it's surrounded between social class, and so I don't think it's
You
something
cannot
we
solve
can only
racism.
cope. I feel coping, telling people how they can cope about and react is the best thing we can probably talk about. I don't know if there's anything we can.
You can't end racism. I feel like as far as there's white and black, you can never end racism. There's always going to be that prejudice against black people.
Yeah, but as generations keep coming, more and more generations keep coming, like we can see like the gaps are getting smaller and smaller. But in my own knowledge, I think the best way to end some of these racial things is like if we start having like black-owned things. For example, if you remember the case in like Chelsea Football Club where Kurt Zuma kicked a cat and he lost his like endorsement.
West Ham. He's in West Ham.
West Ham, and he lost his endorsement, or a case where like what's the name of this former famous NFL player that took a knee? What's his name again?
Colin Kaepernick.
Kaepernick took a knee and he lost his endorsement. Things like that have to do with like taking money out of people's mouth or taking food out of people's mouth. Like for example, if there's like a black-owned shoe brand company like Adidas, they can take athletes like that, and those athletes can get new sponsorships. But because like we don't really have structures in place for like black-owned multi-million or multi-billion businesses, we end up being victims of things like this, where like a black athlete and a white athlete will do something similar, but the black athlete will get like way more significant punishment than the white athlete. And I think it just comes to like the socioeconomic gap in the society. So if we can keep closing those gaps, I know most people, like if you're in school or you say you are studying, you have a day job, like some guys will mock you like, oh, you have a job, you're supposed to be a business owner, you're supposed to be a mogul, and you know, things like this.
Sometimes it's attacking your like peer pressure. Like,
exactly. So things
your
like
self-esteem,
this keep us very, very narrow-minded with regards to like breaking into different industries and like establishing like black-owned businesses that can help us later in the future. And even in terms of like credit too, most black families don't get taught about credit. They don't even pass the knowledge down to like their children, and the children end up starting like at a disadvantaged position because they don't have the knowledge, and all these things tie into the racial narrative that we have in the world today.
Well, I have a scenario though I would like to talk about. So two people I know, I've seen two guys. One is like an African American, one is from Africa, and I think they experienced racism. They were like former roommates of ours. They talked about it.
Okay.
So someone said something to them, and the African American guy reacted. And the guy who came from Africa did not actually feel the racial slur. He didn't see it as anything at first. And they came back and they were like, you know, you're supposed to back me up because that was actually abusive. And the guy was like, you know what? When I had it the first time, I didn't think it was anything too bad. And then we had a conversation that day, and we concluded that racism is basically a very ignorant thing. Like reacting to it sometimes can be ignorant because we just watched the video, right? A disabled guy in the subway said a racial thing to a huge black guy, and the black guy bashed on him. Like he has all the physical strength against the other guy, but him reacting, did it really change anything?
I feel like they want that reaction.
What?
Like people, like racist people, like they say certain stuff to like get a reaction from you. So once you don't like what's it called, you don't give them that reaction, they become powerless. They can't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to go about it. But if you ask me, sometimes, for most of the times, people don't react.
No, sometimes people.
In a soft manner.
I agree that they need to act in a soft manner, but at the same time, I agree that they need to start beating some people. Like two things can coexist. I
think it's from like two perspectives, right?
Well, violence is it the answer though?
Sometimes
I think it's from two perspectives, right? One is the slur, and one is like systematic racism in the sense that maybe somebody is due for a promotion and doesn't get a promotion because he's black. That, you cannot say you are not going to react to something like that, because if you keep quiet, you will never get that promotion. But if somebody calls you is like a slaw now and you decide to be quiet about it and you don't give them that power, that can be applicable to that. But in terms of your career, you're not moving, you're not advancing because some manager or some boss has a racial vendetta
Bias,
against you or a bias against you. That you have to stand up for yourself. There's nothing you can do in that position other than to stand up for yourself.
Just leave the company at that point.
But
Yeah.
yeah, you can leave, but
Well,
you know, there's always this belief that you can just jump
Impulsive,
from companies
yeah.
to companies. Like it's not really that easy. The job market, like
Yeah.
especially now with the inflation going on and like lots of layoffs are happening in Google, Amazon, and all of these tech companies. You don't have the luxury of like jumping from job to job. Like things are getting harder and harder. So like
In fact, I just feel like you just have to cope and expect that things like racism will come your way, and how you react definitely determines how the outcome of everything is. For example, you said the EMT, somebody we know who is an EMT went to get someone with the ambulance, and the person has multiple personality or something like that.
bipolar, or something
Bipolar,
like,
yeah. And the person ended up calling him a like he said, I literally felt like dropping the
Okay.
guy because on the stretcher on the bed when he did that. But I remember I was on the clock. I needed to do my job. I needed to ignore that. For
That
at
guy
that
is such a
moment.
nice
I
man.
think it's funny that you see most people will have amnesia. They'll have memory loss, but they'll still
Just to be
remember to be
racist.
racist. Like you lose your memory about every other thing, but you still remember to be racist. Like
You know?
how that's so freaking convenient, isn't it?
The guy is a good guy because me, I'll drop you. I'll drop you.
Well, I mean, if you drop him, you might lose your job.
I will lose it, but I will drop him. As far as he breaks his head, how you call me the N word? I'm trying to help you. Yeah.
So-
Oh
What
my
the hell?
god!
Very traumatic.
There was also something, and there was a post on Twitter one time that I was reading about like sending aid to Ukraine. I mean, part of like the volunteer group that was getting people to go to Ukraine were like, please note that some of the refugees might be racist, just to give you a heads up or something. There was a way it was worded. I was like, are you serious? People that are in war, that are suffering, you are going there to help them, but they are still calling you racial slurs. That is crazy.
Yeah.
And so they put it on the website to let any black or person of color know before going to Ukraine to help.
That's crazy.
But you know, it's crazy that, you know, it's not everywhere that is like America. There are places on the planet where black people are not common there. So from seeing you, their reaction even feels racist.
China.
Like I saw a video of a lady in, was it Thailand or somewhere, like one part
Asian,
of,
yeah.
they were just like looking at her, taking
think it was
pictures,
China.
like she's a model or something like. So overall, the society right there, they don't even know what being black is all about. They just see you on TV.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. So they have no knowledge. You know, they've not experienced racism. They don't know if what they're doing is racist. They are just reacting to seeing you and being fascinated. But it's quite unfortunate that in the United States, like we have like the black people for generations and generations to come. But as you said, closing the gap is probably one of the best things we can do.
Yeah. And sometimes it's very disappointing if you see somebody like at teenage age is already racist. It's like in this generation, like you were born around the time like that there's equality and everything, and then you still inherited some of the racial biases from your parents.
Doesn't
I think
make sense to
sometimes
me.
it's very, very disappointing.
Yeah.
But you know, everybody can be good and everybody can be bad. So it's just how life is, and we'll just keep trying as a society or as a group of people to keep moving towards like an egalitarian society.
The first time I heard about racism, like it didn't make sense to me. I was in secondary school then. I think SS2. Like someone just mentioned racism. I was like, what is that? They said when people don't like black people. I said, why won't you like black people? I was
Yeah.
so innocent then.
True,
Like,
true.
it didn't make sense to me
Yeah.
until I came to America. I said, okay. this is racism capital of the world.
Yeah.
I mean,
for fact, so.
it's really close between America and Italy, if you ask me.
No,
Like,
Italy is number one.
Italy's they are crazy out there. Like
But
they'll
we
make
have a lot
monkey
of,
chants.
like a lot of Nigerians in Italy now.
They make monkey chants and all that stuff. Are
Is
you
it that
follow-
Nigerians don't care about?
They want to make money. They don't say Nigeria. The economy will push. When you've suffered in Nigeria, racism is nothing to you.
And you know another thing I noticed, like when I came to the US first, like you do find like places where you can walk, like colored people, like Indian people, African people walk, and you hardly find Black Americans working there. It's either they feel the job is not worth it, you know, for them to like treat you that way. For example, like the student job that we had during our
Oh,
time
in the kitchen.
yeah, and like those
Oh,
kitchen
yeah,
jobs,
kitchen jobs.
like, yeah. So if you look at it, sometimes it might be like downgrading because your supervisor is white, or you know they just throw shifts at you. Like
No, even
Say things
generally
to you.
in the workplace, like if you check the hierarchy, usually like if you go to the bottom barrel of people that are working in a society or in an hierarchical society, the lowest or the base you see like there are people of color, Black people, but as you climb higher and higher, the complexion starts getting whiter and whiter, or starts getting lighter and lighter. And that's just the way America is as a society. Like if you check, like most of the manufacturing jobs, for example, like most of the people on the floor are like Mexicans, people of color. But as you go up to like management, director, vice president, it gets whiter and whiter. So it's like, it's just America for you, man. So just a brief refresher. Our topic is first experience with racism in the United States. And we're just talking about racism in general, some of our experiences, some of our philosophies, some of our perspectives. So if you're just catching up with us at this point, you can leave a comment behind, or you can leave a comment in the comment section. You can leave a like, subscribe. So let's jump right back into it. Racism in the US, or racism in general. So
Let me jump in. So I think when Kemi didn't finish her story. So when the guy, when Kemi went to the restaurant and she bought that food, she packed and was eating her food. This guy came back. Just finish the story.
Yeah, he came back and he threw his drink in my car.
oh my
And
god,
started hitting my bumper and was like, "Oh, you tried to kill me."
Is-
By the way, it wasn't just the only him on the road. By the way, there was like at least 4 of them. So I don't understand how. And this guy was the last guy. It was like behind every other person. There are 2 cars on the road. I don't know why you're attacking me. There's another car right in front of
I
me
know, right?
that could possibly have hit you. But why are you attacking me?
for
I don't
context,
understand.
is he a white guy?
Yes. It is.
Okay.
And he wore a red cap.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Just
That makes
saying.
sense. That makes sense.
Me,
I mean, let's
see,
not stereotype any group of people, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a nice person. No. If I can beat you, I'll beat you. I'm being honest. Too.
Well,
Sometimes you need violence.
oh my god.
See,
that's
see, sometimes, right? I feel like if you're going to put on a show or fight, like you need to just stand back a bit and think.
No. I'm not like. See, I'll record my phone on put my phone on my dashboard. I'll beat the person, put it on Twitter. I'll become viral.
Yeah.
Black man beats racist white man.
Actually,
That one's views, money.
Oh my god, that's funny.
I'll use you and make money.
Kemi, I think you had a question, right?
Yeah. So my question was or is, do you guys think Black people can be racist?
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, definition
that's
of
a good
racism.
question. I think yes, black people could be racist too. Like
First of all, what is the definition of racism?
racism is, for my own definition, I think it's like thinking you are superior to somebody else based on the color of skin. That's like a layman's definition of what racism is.
I mean, very possible because I think when this guy came to Nigeria, this popular musician, American musician, came to Nigeria, and
Who?
so I've forgotten his name. Was it Rick Ross? I don't even know. I can't remember. In the comment section, on Twitter, people were just the white African Americans were like, "Oh my God, they have phones. They have this. They have that." I'm like, what do you mean? We have phones.
Ignorance.
And
So-
also, like, I remember growing up, there was this famous, like, Nikemo song, like, this, Weibo man, I go chop your dollar or something like, something like
Also-
about scamming,
Yeah.
scamming
Sophia.
a white
Oh,
man.
Sophia.
And even in Nigeria in general, lots of, a huge population of people think you're smarter than white people, and they can just easily scam them of their money. And I'm like, if you think based on the fact that you are black or Nigerian, you can scam somebody that is white, why don't you use that knowledge to develop the country in general? Why do you think it just has to do with the context of
Okay.
defrauding somebody of money?
Yeah. But I don't think scammers like scam you based off of your like skin color.
They want money. This was don't care.
Yeah, they just
don't
want
care,
money.
They just want their money.
Yeah, but like usually they always use the term like Weibo now, right? A lot of what they do is like has like a racial context to it. Maybe not as obvious as in the US here, but there's some racial context there. And also they justify it by like, oh, slavery.
Okay.
Oh, slavery. This is our payback for slavery, or is it just me, or am I the only one who's heard those kind of conversations?
I think I've heard the same,
Like,
but in terms of what can be asked, if black people can be racist,
So
I think what makes us racist is the fact that we have like tribalism and we pay attention to difference, because racism is like when you're socially different from someone, right? Like the
No, I
skin
think
color and other things.
So according to
No.
Google, right,
Mhm.
definition of racism is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual against a people or person on the basis of the membership of a particular racial or ethnic group. Ethnic.
We are very racist then in Nigeria.
Me, to be honest, so not to say that my definition is superior to what Google is saying, but racism is always based on skin color, which is why I think like in terms of like tribalism is very different, because we are just like emphasizing on the person's tribal origins, not their racial origins.
Tribalism is tribalism on its own.
Exactly.
It's different from
So-
racism.
And when you say ethnicity too, like for example, if you fill in forms like for jobs, they'll ask you ethnicity, Latinos, and whether you are a Latino or you are like Native American or something like that. So I think the context of ethnicity
But
is not the same context with like
wait, on
that
those
we have
forms,
in
right?
Nigeria.
On those forms, they usually say black or African American.
Yeah.
But my question is, why are black people the only people being identified with their color like black? Why don't they say brown or Indian or
White or European.
white or European?
I funny enough too, in the comedy sketch that I was watching at some point, they were like, every group of people in America has something in front of their name before they are Americans, except for white people. Like for example, there's African Americans, there's Mexican Americans, the Latin Americans, but the white people are just Americans.
Well, I think it's because like not all African Americans, well, not all black people in America are African Americans. I guess that's why they specify black.
But why wouldn't you just identify them as Africans? Because if you check the form where you fill your ethnicity, is black or
/
African American.
Yeah, but not all black people are Africans.
Yeah, but I mean they can be like Africans or African American, right? That sounds more.
Yeah, that's because not all black people are Africans.
Yeah, I get what
So-
she's trying to say.
I get what you're trying to say.
So you can't even use. I feel like even like you can really say every black person in America is like African or they have some African origin.
Well, yeah.
I guess that's why it's specified. They put it
I
that
think
way.
a better way to put it would be like African American or African descent. That would be an all-encompassing way to like.
Or just black. Are you black, yes or no?
Wait, that's what they put. That's what they like.
Right.
That's actually what
That
they
is
put
the
in
point Dunia is trying to make. Is like for every other category there, they don't use color.
there. They don't use
Yeah.
color, right? Like it's like if you're European, I don't call you white.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Let's say you're filling a form and you're from Russia, and on the form there they ask you if you're your ethnic group is neither you're European or white. It doesn't happen that way. But for black people, it's either you're black skin, so you could be black from Europe as well. You could be black from China. It's possible if you know.
So what someone like Elon Musk, what is going to put in like African American? He's going to put African.
Yeah, Elon Musk, technically
African.
speaking, is African American because he's an American citizen.
Yeah.
And he's African, so he's technically
He's South
speaking, he's
African, yeah.
African American.
That's very interesting, and he's a white man, so
Yeah.
interesting.
Even people from Egypt too can say they're African American if they come to America because they're Africans. And
But
you
the
know,
term
in-
African American
in our
is
previous episode, we talked about like there's a difference between like African American and American African. Have you
Yeah.
heard that?
yeah.
American African.
Like
What's that?
So African Americans are like, according to Chimamanda, I don't know where she got it from, but I saw an interview that she had with like CNN or some other popular news outlet, and she was like, African Americans are like people who are like descendants of
ADOS slaves.
but
American
American African are those children of African immigrants. So there's like a distinction there. I don't know who is making that
what's the
distinction,
distinction?
but
That some came by themselves.
yeah, some came voluntarily and some came involuntarily, or like maybe that's why there's a difference. But I thought it was crazy because even if you notice during Obama's like campaign, a lot of people made it like a point to say that Obama is not African American because he's not a descendant of a slave, because his dad is from Kenya, and they had him with like they had him here while his dad was here for like
Yeah.
school or something. So there's something like that, and I don't know why that exists, but you know,
Well, if you know where you're from, shouldn't where you're from should come like if your parents are from Nigeria and you're an American, it should be like Nigerian American, or you just say you're American. If that's what you want to claim.
Yeah. You know this nomenclature. There's an example of something that happened. Usibanjo, the vice president in Nigeria, was saying we should not be using state of origin anymore.
Yeah.
We should be using state of residence,
Yeah.
because it seems like I think the election caused a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's say you live in Lagos, you're not Yoruba, or they just see you like an outsider, but you were born in Lagos, for
Yeah.
example.
yeah, me for example, I was born in Lagos.
So-
I lived all my life in Lagos.
If they change that nomenclature, maybe the future generation will not like see you to be, oh, you're from here, you're Nigerian, and it creates a more
Yeah.
national integration,
nationality,
national integration,
Yeah.
and
America is state of residence, whatever. The thing
Yeah.
is like
yeah.
So
Well-
I mean, go on.
I still think you should. Why would you want your entire background to, why would you want to erase that because you're living in a different place? If I'm a Yoruba girl that lives in Hausa land, I'm not going to claim to be Hausa, even if I've been there all my life. I'm still a Yoruba girl, and I think I would always claim to be a Yoruba girl.
Okay.
So I don't think you should like erase your background just so you can fit into something, or like just erase your entire culture because you've been living somewhere. At the end of the day, we're all from somewhere. You cannot just be someone who came from, you can just erase, your entire history just because you're in a different place.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but with the context of like national integration, which is very important, like in a place like Nigeria, because there's a lot of ethnic divide and tribal divide. So, for example, like if you're born in like Lagos, and maybe during a phase in your adult life, you move to like somewhere in the north. Guess what? Like if you settle down in the north and you start having kids in the north, those kids are as northern as any other group of kids in the north, because they will grow up with the language, they'll grow up with the culture, they will even know it more than you do. So if you would like to claim like Lagos, for example, as where you're born, your kids are not supposed to claim Lagos as well, because they are more northerners than they are as much as northern children as every other northern child there. So that's like the idea that I think is very, very important, because once we have that in place during elections, if you remember that, oh, my children are northerners, even if I'm not, maybe there will not be as much as a bias in the elections anymore. That is what I think is the goal behind that.
I feel Kemi's point because I think, have you seen any video where someone, an African American, was saying, "I'm not African,"
Yeah. Yeah. Many.
but their parents were Africans, once Africans, right? So like, from the point you made, you should not forget where you came from. But it seems like not everybody wants to be associated with, where they came from. Like,
Well, I guess it's an identity thing. If you don't want to claim your background, if it's just something you want to, like, be attached to, I guess it's fine, but it shouldn't be forced down anybody's throat. Like, you have to, claim this, And like you said before, if I had kids and they grew up in an Hausa land, it still doesn't change their identity that their mother is a Yoruba woman, right? So it don't really matter how long you stay somewhere. I don't think you can ever be the people who are actually originally from that place,
That's a good point.
very good point. I think another point I want to add is, we the human race, right? We have the identity crisis, and I think black people will have a very chronic identity crisis because we're always struggling. Like, we are migrants now, right? We're gonna have kids. They'll probably be second, third generation Americans, and some might have identity crisis, like, where should I clinch on?
Yeah.
What path should I actually hold on to stand out? And
Yeah, so I remember me and Dunia were having this conversation a while back because, like, even as immigrants, right, there's a huge emphasis on not having a lost generation. For example, like, if you start having your own kids, maybe your parents might be asking you, speak the native or indigenous language to them so they understand the indigenous language. But at the same time, I was talking to Dunia about it, like, you can only control it as much as you're around. As soon as you die, it's over. Like, it depends on those kids if they really want to go back home and create that attachment to their home country. If they don't, that's it. It's done. There's nothing you can do from your grave. There's only so much you can do as, like, a parent. So I think at the end of the day, our children are going to be whatever they're going to become. We don't have power to influence it. And even if we might feel like, our generation or our ancestry is lost as a result of that, that's just what comes with immigration. I think we are going off topic a little bit. Let's go back to racism. Because, like,
no, but if you check, like, all these things we're talking about is still linked. Like, you talking right now, something just came to me. Have you done the ancestry test before?
Nope.
But people who do it, and they find out, like, I'm 6% Jamaican, I'm 2% from Poland. I'm like, you're what? So, what is the possibility that 100 years ago you were from Mozambique? There's a possibility, like, your ancestors were from somewhere not in the Nigerian region, right?
Yeah,
There's
very possible.
Yeah, there's a very big possibility. And then, for some reason, right now, you don't just feel any sense of attachment to anywhere else apart from that Niger area.
Like, you might say you're Yoruba, but if you check down like 3-4 generations, maybe your parents immigrated from, like, Eastern region, or they immigrated from, like, Northern region, you might have no idea. And you might end up clinging to the fact that you're Yoruba. And if you go and take that test, it might just
That's why they say know your history.
Right, and which is why you should not erase your identity based off of where you are.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, look at that.
True.
And Nigeria, like, there are no records kept. Like, I don't know my great grandfather.
Look, we don't. When I came here, like, I meet friends and I talk to, like, people who are Italians. They have a family tree. Yeah. Like, your dad will show you your family tree. You know your great grandfather if he fought in the war. Very detailed.
Yeah.
But mine is like, I probably just know my dad, probably a little about my granddad, and the rest is like history.
You know where I blame for this? You know where I blame? Mr. Far, we agree. The British.
The British.
I'm not saying anything controversial today. I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't like. What's the cause of, like, these bad records?
Yeah,
because I would like to know my great grandfather. What did he do? How did it look like? All those things.
You see, like, even me, like, now, for example, like, I don't have any record of my grandfather. Like, my dad's dad is lost. There's no photo of him. Nothing, because he died when my dad was, like, really, really young. And so they don't even have a photo. And that's like my granddad.
Yeah.
Just like maybe just one generation away. Like I have no record. I don't even know what it looks like.
True.
So that's just crazy with regards to like record keeping in
Yeah,
Africa.
and I see like these sorry for cutting you off, but like to the nearest point, these white people, like some of them, they'll be like, my grandfather fought in World War One.
Yeah.
Like, how did you know that? Oh,
That's where I'm getting to. Like the way we
crazy.
keep records in Africa is based on carvings in like most of some of the dolls, the idols, and all of this stuff. They contain information. So as a result of
Or the
colonization,
royal families usually have
yeah,
they usually have
colonization.
a history. Oh, this your family were ruling this certain kingdom, but the rest people like
As a result of colonization, right, where most of the artifacts were stolen and taken to England and displayed in the British Museum now, a lot of them have information about like families, family trees. I was having a conversation with a family friend. He's from Benin. He said his dad, this is like someone who's like my dad's age, his own dad used to carve things on idols, information, knowledge about like their family history or their family like origins. And that's just his dad. So you can imagine like 4 or 5 generations down, that is how they used to store information. If you even check Egypt, the pyramids,
Not
they used to
even
write
Egypt,
on the wall, carve all these things.
Yeah,
That
those
is
drawings.
how
Funny-
Africans
funny
keep.
fact. I think
keep
in the
knowledge.
US, right? I watched. There's an article that said, so black people can actually trace their descendants from their name, their surname. So
Yeah.
if a slave master
their
buys you,
slave-
they
yeah.
give you their
Name.
surname, and your offsprings eventually adopt that name. So like you hear the Jackson, maybe
because
Or
why is the white
Johnson,
person
yeah.
being William? Why are you
exactly.
William?
So if you trace back based on record, you can
Yeah.
find which plantation your great grandfather
That's
landed
crazy.
in. You see,
That's crazy.
but beyond that, there's no record, and sometimes some people have records from where they actually got you from, your ancestors from in like Africa, maybe
Interesting.
West Africa, wherever it is, and then you can start your search from there. So
Okay, back to racism. Yeah, but I mean, America needs to do better with racism. Like that Kemis incident. Like I feel like people like bystanders should have come and beat the man
Yeah.
or something.
and
They didn't do
he
anything.
felt so entitled to react to her, probably
Yeah.
because he saw her color, and
Yeah.
he felt like, let me lash. If it was a white woman, a Karen,
If it was a black man in the can that was FT
Exactly.
and big, you
Yeah.
would
So-
not try anything.
so actually people, whether white or black, people take advantage of either your color and just react to you, talk to you anyhow because they feel like
they kind of physically
they
overpower
can
you.
physically overpower you or feel entitled about it.
I think that's more of a men's thing than black or white thing. But
Toxic.
anyways, I feel like because we're like all Africans in this room, I don't think we can really say like black people can be racist. Just because like I don't even think it's our place to even have that conversation really, or even to say that. I don't know. That's what I feel. You
I
guys
agree.
might. You might.
No,
you
I
might feel this-
disagree
yeah.
because I think I'm black too. Even though I'm African, I'm also black. Like I made this statement in the previous episodes. Like if a cop stops me on, like driving, they stop me. They're then gonna ask me, "What kind of black are you? Are you African or are you African American?" I'm black to them. Like
But
from a mile away,
know-
you see me and I'm black. Wait, I'm coming up. Let me finish this up. So if a lot of times, if you refer to the word black, it's always associated with African Americans, and I don't think that should be the case. Black should be anybody who is black. For example, if we have like Black History Month, we should also talk about like Africans. We should also talk about everybody that is of black descent, because that's the only way we can have a cohesive society as black people, because we all have shared experiences. There might be nuances here and there, but all experiences are shared with regards to racism.
Well, yeah. I mean, you just made my point. I think my point is Kemi and yours together. If we're going to have the right to talk about it, I think we should have different scenarios of black people, like the African Americans, present like in a conversation like this, and then we might hear different views about what
Yeah.
certain people feel, and that will make the whole conversation like more complete. But that does not mean we're not making sense with what we feel and what we experience and what we think about the whole thing.
Yeah,
That's my point.
that's right.
Yeah, so we'll wrap this episode here. As Black creators, I think it's very, very important we like talk about racism every now and then. Shed some light on it, talk about some of our experiences, because I think it's very, very important, because like somebody personally might be going through something and they might need somebody to relate to make them feel a little bit better with regards to racism. So we're gonna wrap today's episode right here, and please stay tuned, like, subscribe, leave a comment. If you have a disagreement with anything anybody has said here, just leave it in the comment section. Keep it nice, keep it simple, keep it pretty. Please, no insults in the comment section, and we will catch you on the next episode. So I'm signing out. Anybody else have something to add to what I'm saying or what I said?
No, that's all for me.
Don't be
Awesome.
racist.
I mean, you can try, but what you see is what you get.
Peace out, everybody.
All right, take care.
Thank you.